Okay, we're going to be learning. There's a few Maamarim on Parshas Chayei Sarah, and we're going to be learning the Maamar. There's two Maamarim. A few of the Maamarim actually discuss the idea of the levushim, the garments, and the need to do mitzvahs in this world. So we have garments to be able to take in the raves, God's light, which means a greater understanding of God's existence in the world to come in Olam Haba and Garden of Eden. So the mitzvahs become our garments, so to say, for us to be able to take in the light, like a person who wears clothing to be able to be in the environment. Now the question is, of course, what's this have to do with Parshas Chayei Sarah? And this a second Maamar also talks about this with the prayer of Yitzchak before he meets Rivka in the field, which also discusses this issue. So we've learned before the first Maamar, which is on the idea of Avram Zakum Bava Yamim, and we're going to learn the Maamar that is, excuse me, the Maamar that's connected to Yitzchak, but on the same idea of the garments of the levushim. Of not so much the focus on the garments, but so much the difference between the avodah this world, our service that we have to do in this world, versus the service we do, the light or the reward that we have in the world to come. So the pasuk says like this: Vayayitze Yitzchak lasuach basada. Yitzchak, our father Yitzchak, goes out lasuach to be in the field. So it says the suach to walk or to speak or there's different translations to the word suach or siach that we're going to see. Levar is to understand this. So the Rebbe says like this: Tehine yesh mishnah ubraisa. In the times of the Mishnah, means the first of the Torah Sheba'al Peh, of the oral law. It was the Mishnayos we have, which was authored by Rebbe, by Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. And on that is the Talmud. And also there was a second version, so to say, of the Mishnah, which is called the Brisa. And the Brisa could sometimes be very similar to the Mishnah, but in much more detail. So the Mishnah is more short pen, and that's the Mishnayos. And then we have the Brisas, mostly we know them from the Talmud that mentions them, but much more elaborate. So if you'll have something that's more precise in the Mishnah, it will be more detailed in the Brisa, similar to talking about the same exact laws with much more detail. So he says, Ubraisa Pirusha Mishnah, because the Braisa is really an explanation to elaborate, so to say. It's not like the Talmud, but it's from the same sages of the Mishnah, but it's an explanation. We have more understanding from the Braisa of the meaning of the Mishnah. Because he says the Mishnah is the klal, is what's called the rule. And the Braisa is the prat shel Mishnah, is the details of the rule. So you have the rule, and then you have the details that help us understand the rule. And we have a rule, we have a rule. We have one of the 13 midos of Shetar Nidreshes Bahem is ve'ein b'chalal el mash beprat. The general rule is only made up as a general rule of what's in the details. It means you can't have something that's in the klal, in the general rule, but there's no details about it, meaning it's beyond the details. Whatever you see in the rule has to be able to be explained in the details. So he says, L'chura, seemingly, Habraisa hi lemata min Mishnah. So meaning to say, based on this, that the Braisa is lower than the Mishnah. The Mishnah is more the rule, and it comes lower to explain the details. So it's like it has to go lower, so it should be more understood. So it's lemata, it's below the Mishnah. Shenishtar shel yois lemata, has to come down further below. Avla emesu, but the truth is, and that's why we really retreat it. The publication of the Mishnayos is its own book. It's its own set, the Mishnayos. We don't have really a publication of the Brisas in the way that we have in the Mishnah, or people learn the Brisas the way they learn the Mishnah. The Mishnah is the rules, and then you learn the Brisas, whether it's in the Talmud or other ways. But the emes is, he says, the truth is, Shahabraisa Gaveh Yosef. At the end of the day, is the Brisa, although it's only the details of the rule, it's really higher. Why? Based on our understanding of the concept of the rule that says Seif Ma'is Machshav Techila. That the Seif Ma'isa, the further you go down, the end game is what's in the initial thought. It means the further something comes into action or into actuality, that's where the real kavan is. That's the machshav tchila. That's the initial thought. Because the initial thought isn't that things stay in an above and beyond level. The idea is the more comes into this world, the more it becomes detailed. That was the intention of God within creation. This is a short mimer, so we don't have to go fast. Tehine, meaning to say, if you're going to have the Mishnah is going to be hazy. If the Mishnah is going to be the rule, and the details are of the Mishnah, and we're going to see an example about this in a second, is going to be in the Brisa. So because the Brisa gets into more details, it's safe ma'isa. It's more means that a person who reads the Brisa, learns the Brisa, understands more in maybe not in the understanding of the law, but in the performance of the details of how to do the law from the Brisa. If it gives more details of how you're supposed to do things, so therefore it's more in the ma'isa. It means safe ma'isa. At the end of the day, the more you get into the action, and that's the machshavat chila. That was the intention. It means the intention is not to be in an aloof level. And so to say, God allows for us lower levels to understand what's happening above. The whole intention was below. That's what we say this in this line that we say Seif Ma'aseh Machshava Techila, which is part of the prayer on Friday night that we say in the Lechadodi. It's a statement about the intention of creation. That the intention is here, not above. Not that there's a world above, there's a spirituality above, there's a Garden of Eden above, there's an world to come above. And we happen to also exist. The kavana, the intention is the existence here. Everything else exists because we exist. Like the Maggid would say, "Da mimcha." Know what's above you. Know that whatever's above you is from you. The only reason there's something above you is because you exist. So the more something comes down into the details, that's more the kavana, the intention of creation. So if the Brisa is going to explain the meaning of the law in more detail than the Mishnah, that's closer to the Maisa, to the action. That's more of the intention than if it was cryptic in the Mishnah. So though a person may say, well, the Mishnah is higher, more spiritual, more godly, because it's more it's less understood than the Brisa. Says no. At the end of the day, the Brisa is higher because at the end of the day, it is connected to the Kavanah. And this is a rule. Saif Ma'aseh Machshav Techila, we've learned it many times, but this is a rule in Chassidus that although a person that when you look at this is the generation gap, a person may say, "Wow, the other generations are so much more spiritual." It's or how could how could a soul be in this world? That's one of the discussions in this mimer and the previous mimer. How could we compare a neshama, a soul in this world with all its attachment to body needs and the animal soul needs, compared to the soul, the way it's up in heaven, stripped of that, only wanting godliness? Of course, there must be much higher over there, but that's not Saif Maisa. That's not the end game. That wasn't the point of the soul's existence to be in Garden of Eden. The point of the soul's existence is to be in this world. So the further you get into the point of creation, that's really connected to the kavanah, the intention. Right? If someone is the point, when people have furniture or something beautiful in the house, is to say, no, I'm going to leave it I'm going to buy a beautiful couch and put it in storage. That's not the point. The point is it's to be in the house. Yes, it may get dirty in the house. People are going to sit in it. It's going to get worn. But the point is it should be part of life. And the further we go into the life, into existence, that's the machshava. That's really the intention. And therefore the Brisa, which helps us understand how to perform the mitzvah better, the detail of the law, is closer to the intention than something that's cryptic that's not so understood, like the Mishnah. So he explains that. The Torah comes down to this world. Again, the Torah, there's the way the Torah is above, which is beyond, so to say, the gashmis, the physicality of the law. It's kind of a remez, a hint to something spiritual and in spiritual powers of movement, of the midos, of the attributes of the angels, etc. But the Torah actually comes down the mata to this world physically. Afilu b'davar sheker, b'dvar sheker. Even if the Torah has to figure what's the law when we consider someone may be lying. For instance, the example always given, the fact is, when you open up a Talmud, or the Mishnah of Baba Basra, and you open up the law that talks about two people holding on to a talis, to a garment, and both of them claiming 100% ownership. I found it first. The other one says, no, I'm 100% sure I found it first. And the Torah has to figure out what's the law, because we don't know who found it first. And we have to figure out how do we divide it, or how do we deal with such a situation. That means the Torah has to figure out when you're dealing with someone who's lying. because obviously they couldn't both find it first. And the conclusion, and the law is not going to be that we try to figure out who's saying the truth. We have to figure out, knowing that someone is lying, how do we deal with the facts on the ground? So we have to divide it because we have no choice. We say, okay, fine, we have to cut it in half or sell it and each one takes half the value. That means Torah has to lower itself and come into the details of laws and issues that are even situations of lying. It means Torah is emes, the Torah of truth. And here the truth of Torah is telling us how to deal in a situation when one person's for sure lying. And it's not the only, that's just an example of other cases of where the Torah deals with physicalities that are it's not a spiritual question. It's how do we deal with things in this world. Torah deals, there's no happening in this world that Torah doesn't have an opinion or a detail of how one's supposed to behave and how do we deal with such a situation. And not all of them are a good answer. There's just some that are better answers or a way to deal with it. And that's the whole point. That Torah even encloses itself to a situation of worldly things. We have two people, which is a normal thing. One person may be lying. When we come, okay, he givoya kisayf ma'is at the same point is that's the sign of how high Torah is. The angels can't get into that space. The angels, when Moshe Rabbeinu gets the Torah, comes to receive the Torah, the angels said, "What are you giving Moshe the Torah?" Moshe Rabbeinu is the Torah. The Torah is to stay a spiritual concept. And Moshe's answer to them was, you don't deal with these issues. The Torah has to come all the way down into detailed issues. Do you have hate? Do you have jealousy? Were you ever enslaved? Have you experienced life the way it is in this physical world? And that's Saif Maisa, the end action. Although the end action seemingly isn't always so pretty, but that was the kavanah. That's where Torah wants to be found. Kimshal hashveiferes, like for instance, if you had a narrow tube, hanichnas rishon yetsa achron. So if you could only fit one, if one could only enter at one point, and one could leave, and then they have to leave the same. They also could leave one at a time. If they're leaving at the same point of entry. So if you had a tube and you put in a marble, and then you put in the second marble, so the first marble that goes in is this last marble to come out. So it's the same thing he says over here. So kimshal shreiferis, like a tube, hanichnes rishon, the thing that goes in first, yotze achron, comes out last, because it can't come out before the thing that came in second is blocking it. Hey Dan, adam shu soif kol hanivraim v'hu b'mayla kulam. So too, that's the idea of the soif ma'isa machshav tchila, that although man came out last, is the last of creation, but just like the marble goes in first, comes out last, so too the intention of whole creation as human comes out last. The humans are the highest of all creations, and everything was created for the Adam, for man. And because of that, we find that the complications of life you find more in no other creation like a human being. The ups and downs, the extremes, the spectrum of ideas, all the components of the complexity of a human life, you don't find that in the animal kingdom. Yes, you can have extreme, but it's usually one direction. This is extreme characters in one character. The lion is going to behave this way, the elephant's going to create that way. And if an animal does something a little bit slight out of its character, everyone's wondering. Right? So, wow, this is unusual, but for humans, it's normal for us to do all kind of things because a person has the whole world, all the complexities of the worlds within a human being. Lahiris, and the reason why we have all kind of emotions, extremes, right? We can have within us all the characters of all the animals, right? The raven is achzarias, is cruel. We could be cruel too, and we could be kind too. The same person who could be cruel could be kind. So like the Alter Rebbe says, the raven will never be kind. The raven's character is always to be cruel, and other animals will only be kind. But we have the whole spectrum within us. So what's the idea that we find the whole world within a person, meaning all the character traits within a person, is because everything was created for the person. There is no character trait that could exist that's not found in almost every human being at some level. Because everything is for man. And that's why this is one of the themes of Parshas Chayesara, is this idea of Yafesh Achas. He mentions over and over again the Mishnah, which is mentioned many times in Chassidus, that better to be a little bit of time in this world with all its complications and all its inconsistencies and all its ups and downs and all its fallings and imperfections that the soul doesn't have in heaven. But in this world, because that's the Seif Maisa, that's where it's about this world. than to be in this world, in a world of tshuva, of repentance, return, ma'asim tovim, and good deeds, than all the world to come. Because the world to come, yes, it's a perfect existence, but it's not the point of creation. But why do we say that? Why do we say it's better to be in this world? In the world to come, the righteous sit. Everyone's righteous. They sit and they bask in the glory of God. But that's only secondary. That's the back. That's not the real intention. It's like someone who puts your back to someone. So there's in Chassidus we have many times what we call sometimes acharayim or chitzonius. Like says Yar Shem Panav, God puts his face towards us. Means that's his intention. That's a sign of God's intentions towards the Jewish people. Acharayim is kind of is an expression of a chitzonius, of external. Yes, it's God's light. It's all that, but it's not the kavanah for us for the righteous to sit in the world to come and bask in God's glory. That's not why the world was created. Like Moshe says, I was able to see God from behind, but to see the face, you want to know where the face is? Where's God's focus? And on the face also we have, like it says many times, and from the back, everything is a simple look. You don't see character in the back as much as you see in the front. Different expressions. If you want to know what a person's talking to you, not facing you, you don't have an idea really what they mean. But when you look at them, you can tell what they mean. Their face, you could read their face of their expression, if their intention is nice, kind, etc. This idea that a person could, which is what the world to come is to take pleasure in your achievements, right? That a person can understand and comprehend what I achieved, because you don't really understand what you achieved in this world. So there's a huge thing about the world to come. And that's why we also quote the statement that said over and over again, it's worth it to go to hell, as complicated as hell is in order to experience the world to come. Because as far as enjoyment of to know what you've been doing, to really understand what you've been doing in this world, not just, to do it is in this world, but to understand what you were doing in this world. What did I really accomplish? You're only going to understand that in the world to come. So therefore, the pleasure, shemasik adam b'avedasei, so the comprehension a person has of what I achieved while I was in this world, at the end of the day, it's still only secondary. That's from behind. Because when the question comes to what's God's intention, yes, he's gifting us to appreciate what we've done. But what drives him is the doing, not the fact that the soul is sitting there taking joy in what's getting done. Upanai, but you want to see the face of God. That we can't comprehend. Because it's not possible for a person to see God and live. There's no if you're seeing the panai, you're not existing. Panai is the essence, and in the essence, you can't be a creation and understand the essence. And where are you in touch with the essence? Not understanding, but in touch with the essence is in this world. And that's why we have these two statements. One is the greatness of the world to come, and also we have the statement of the importance of this world. So if that's in the world to come, so too in the Garden of Eden, which is still lower than the world to come. World to come is in the times of the Mashiach. Garden of Eden is happening now, when souls depart from this world, or before they come down to this world. Therefore, at the end of the day, the Mishnah says, better be one period of time in this world, because in this world you may not understand. You're not going to understand. Nothing close to what you understand in the Garden of Eden in the world to come. But this is where it's happening. This is the intention. You're involved in what the intention is. The machshava tchila. What inspired creation is happening now? Which is the action. Although you have no pleasure. And no seichel means uncomprehension. It's better mikol chayim haba. It's even better than any kind of existence we're going to have in the world to come. The seif mais machshava tchila. Because if you want to know where the initial intention of creation, machshava, the thought of creation, is in the action. The seif mais is the action that's happening now. And therefore, when we have to see, yes, the Mishnah may seem more spiritual. It's more godly. It's more cryptic. It doesn't get into so many details. So it's kind of void of the physicality of things. Or it's less physical than the Brisa, which is much more into details. He's going to give an example. Because the Mishnah is just the rule. He gives an example. If you want to know for instance, and we're just coming out of the holiday of Sukkot, right? So it says, Dal Ma'akaves, you have to have 4 walls in the Sukkah, or Sukkah Shigavaya for Sukkah is too high, right? We know that that's in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says a Sukkah can't be higher than 20 amas, let's say 30 feet. If it's higher, that means the schach can't be higher from the ground 30 feet. And then, and for the Mishnah, because it's this is also a very big idea that sometimes the rules are understood much better than the details. The details kind of you could say like a general statement. Shabbos is beautiful. You could say things because you didn't break it down into pieces, so you could kind of give a nice spiritual understanding to it that everyone feels comfortable. When all of a sudden you start seeing the details of the law, it doesn't always fit with the reasoning because why is this? Why this? Yes, that no. Right. So it's not always the more you understand something, the more you know the details of the law. Sometimes less you understand the law. When it's just general law, keep Shabbos. All of a sudden you open up every single law. I don't understand why I can do this, why I can't do that. It starts to get complicated, the reasoning. Same thing over here. The Mishnah says, 4 walls, sukkah that's too high. What's wrong with the sukkah too high? I don't see the schach. A person's eyes doesn't rise that high. Or the tchelas, why do I have to have the blue strings on my tzitzis is because the blue is like the heaven, and that's an idea of heaven. Fine. We got a sukkah yesh tam, and also like it says about sukkah. So why does it have to be 20 amas within 30 feet? Because it says L'man yedu deresechem, that the generation has to know. We have to know that God took us out of a sukkah, and only up to 20 amas you're in a space of knowledge. Meaning to say, but in the sukkah it brings me the knowledge, the experience of God taking me out of Egypt. But if the schach is so high and I don't see it, so I don't feel like I'm in a sukkah. So when I'm in a sukkah, so I'm not going to have the das. So if that's what Sukkot is all about, fine, then that's simple. I have to know what Sukkot is, that God took me out and there was clouds and all that. So I'm in a Sukkah. That's why the schach can't be too high. I could put the ideas together. I could put the ideas with the experience of Sukkah. It all sounds nice. It all feels good. When you come to the Brisa, when it starts going to the details, Levar, who prat Levar Mishnah, starts explaining the details in the Mishnah. Bechol diktukim upratim, in all its details and specifics. For instance, sukkah ganvach v'rakshav, which is a sukkah has to be, if it's a sukkah, let's say it says sukkah, so the Brisa says sukkah's goyim, a Gentile sukkah, or a woman's sukkah, or an animal sukkah, or sukkah of kutim, which are other kind of peoples that lived in the time, or the sukkah of the shepherds, or the sukkah of the people watching the vegetables, or watching the cut vegetables, etc. Right? So all of a sudden it starts coming all these details now. So like you're trying to figure out what's that have to do really with what the general message of Sukkah. Shane Talmud over there, we don't understand exactly why the Bryce is giving us all these details of different types of sukkahs. It means if you have a sukkah that pre-exists that has another service, for instance, it was a sukkah of a person who's in a field who sits there because honestly, if you go, we went on a hike on sukkahs this year, my wife and my kids went to the valley in towards the Dead Sea, towards the Jordanian desert. The person was sitting in a sukkah, not because it was sukkahs, because he had a little sukkah, because he's sitting in a hut. He was a guy he was a person from the parks department, and he didn't want to sit in the sun the whole day, so he sat, and something had like a wall and had a little bit of had a shade, so it was like a sukkah. The shade was made up of bamboo. In theory, it could have been. It wasn't a kosher sukkah because it didn't have proper walls. So that's what the mission is trying to figure out. The Bryce is trying to figure out, what about these sukkahs that are kind of made up for people that already pre-exist? They have pre-existing purposes. So then it's not so clear why those would be sukkahs. It's nothing to do with the message of God taking us out of Pesach, out of Mitzrayim. So he says, and therefore, when you start looking at the details we start to lose. We start to realize that the mitzvah is much deeper than what we figured out. When we simplify and generalize a mitzvah, sometimes we could apply an understanding to it, and everyone feels good. It's the details that start confusing us. When you start seeing that the halacha says this is the only way to keep Shabbos, this is really what the sukkah is, all the details, and we don't understand why these details matter. If the whole point is just to have an experience of an enclosure in the desert and outside, to remind us, of the clouds, and all of a sudden we start saying this is the law, that's the law, all the kind of the details, we start losing understanding of the purpose of the mitzvah. So we see Venir B'chush, and then when we start learning the details, we start realizing it's not a problem. It's trying to show us that the simplified understanding was really just simple. But there's something much deeper than that. And as you understand the law better, you understand that you don't really understand the mitzvah. And that's the statement. That don't think that when you have the general rule of the mitzvah, that's the real understanding of the mitzvah. But when I start really studying the details, I don't understand. Okay, I don't understand the details, but I really understand the mitzvah because I understand the general rule of the mitzvah. That's what he's saying. No, ein b'chlal el masher b'prat. The klal itself, the mitzvah itself that you thought you understood, you don't really understand, because the general rule is made up of the details. And without the details, there is no general rule. And just like the details you don't really understand, it kind of shows you that there's a deeper understanding to the mitzvah than you thought. The truth is you don't really understand the mitzvah and its general rule either. So what you once understood to say, okay, I captured the meaning of this mitzvah, doesn't mean that it was wrong, but it's not the depth, it's not the real depth of the mitzvah. And the proof is because in the details you have it breaks it down and makes it more complicated. Shein b'mishin b'chlal yosim b'prata brisa. The mission doesn't have a general understanding more than the brisa, and when the brisa shows us that there's a deeper meaning to the mitzvah, that means that the Mishnah that tells us the initial kind of general rules of the mitzvah, that also it's deeper than what you thought you understood. Some people don't want to hear the details. Details confuses them about Yiddishkeit, about Judaism and the laws. It's much easier to have it kind of to generalize it and to apply a kind of a spiritual understanding to that generalization, because the details kind of break it down too much. And he says, no, it doesn't work like that. Ein b'chlal, the rule doesn't have more than the details. And if the details is showing us that there's so much more depth to the mitzvah, so that really applies to the whole mitzvah on itself. And what you insert is the general rule. That was a basic understanding, but you don't really understand the mitzvah. And that's why the Bryce is deeper than the Mishnah. The lower the more details, the more it gets involved, shows us the depth of the mitzvah. So why don't we understand the details? Is because it shows us that's higher. And the Bryce is the one that shows us the depth of the mitzvah. If one was to only learn the rules of the mitzvah, you may walk around thinking you understand what God's will is over here. Because the depth of the reasoning of the mitzvahs were not revealed. In the time of Mashiach, with God's will, Yisrael will be more revealed. This is brought down. We've learned this before in our Talmud classes, that it says that Rab Shimon darish time of the crop. It's talking about Rab Shimon Bar Yochai. Rab Shimon Bar Yochai, so simply means time he would darish, he would teach us. What is the reasoning of the pasuk? We had it just before in our Sanhedrin class. The pasuk says X, Y, and Z, right? The pasuk says that in the Ir Nidachs, in a city of idol worship, you can X, Y, and Z is the law. He tells us, why does the Torah say this? And when we send the why, so then we understand better the mitzvah. So he says, on the contrary, it's not what it means. Rab Shimon darish time of the crowd should darish shemash nemer b'pasuk tamish al davar zel loizau ikar. Rab Shimon's teaching, on the contrary, he's darshins. He shows us that what you thought there was a reason, that the Torah says a reason for the mitzvah, you should know that's just a basic, so to say, external reason. But there's something much deeper than our understanding. Nimsa. The higher the mitzvahs that we don't understand, the mitzvahs that we don't understand. So when you understand something, so it's not the fact that we think we understand something. It means we haven't appreciated its depth. The mitzvahs that have less understanding we're more in touch with their depth because we don't even have an assumption that we understand the mitzvah. And the things that we do understand is only secondary or external. It's not the essence of what's happening. And here he says something that's very important. Meaning to say, what we're saying from here's Alter Rebbe again. We're learning Torah Or. The Torah Or itself is more cryptic than the Likutei Torah. So the Alter Rebbe says like this: that a person who's studied up to what we said today, it's kind of a little bit confusing, because what we're saying basically is that if a person wants to have the heart of a Jewish life, the heart of Torah mitzvahs, so it's easier to have the general rule, which gives us a flavor of understanding what we're doing, and therefore Yiddishkeit, Judaism, has a kind of, I understand what's happening here. I understand this the emotional relationship that I have through living a Jewish life and being a Jew. So maybe that's it. So all of a sudden here we're saying that no, the mission is not as high. The Bryce, the less you understand, the deeper you're getting to it. So what's the point here? So and here he comes in this next paragraph. And this is the mistake that the world, he says, may possibly make. That's all about the heart, how I feel about things. It's all about that I understand. I take pleasure in the Judaism, in the spirituality. I understand the sukkah because if I just generalize it, it kind of gives it a picture. And therefore I serve God with passion. But the Alter Rebbe says, but sorry to say, that's not true. That's not the way it is. It's all about the action. And the action, you need the details to know how to be a Jew. And every mitzvah, there's a way you do the mitzvah. And we could say this is not the way the performance of the mitzvah is. And when you get into the details, you feel less emotionally connected because it becomes down to details. So a person may say, I'm losing heart the more I'm getting into the details. But he says, but who says it's about the heart? And this is what Alter Rebbe is coming to say over. And this whole point of, and because if it's about the heart, then the world to come is greater than this world. Because in this world, you're just doing things. In the world to come, you understand, you're feeling, if you're excited when you understand the limitations of what you understand here, imagine when you're basking in the light and you mamish understand, you truly understand what's going on, you truly feel what's going on, right? Like the angels, even higher. But at the end of the day, the ikar is rak ikar hu amaisa. It's about the action. Beli taining, it's not so much about the pleasure. Bahalev, it's not so much about the heart. You have to put in heart. But when you have to say, where's the point of it all? It's in the action. That's why we spoke about our Dvar Torah this last Friday, about Avram Avinu walks away from God to do the mitzvah. Same, based on the same rule. Although he's sitting, he's basking, and he's getting all the glory and all the beauty, everything's being revealed to him. But it comes down to the mitzvah. Right now, he had an opportunity to do a mitzvah, an actual mitzvah of serving his guests. That comes before sitting with God. The heart is only to help you do the action. That's why the heart in Tanya describes the midos of heart as wings. Wings are only help you fly. The you is not the wings. The problem is when we think we are the wings. We're not the wings. We're the body, the torso of the bird. The wings are just to help that the bird should fly. Mishnah, now he continues, Mishnah nikir ear, Mishnah because it's more kind of the perfect, just the law, the general rule is like the city. Right? If that's the city, the city is the end, is what you think you see is going on in a person's life. You walk into someone's house, okay, you look at the house, you look how nice the house is, how new it is, and what furniture is in the house. It's seemingly where the person lives, right? But the house is only as if there's a field, if there's something to support the house, right? In the Mishnah is the city. That's the house. That's the residential place. The Bryce is the field. That's where you work. That's how you support the city. It's outside the city. Seemingly, what's more important, the city or the field? Where does the person live? The person lives in the city. Yeah, who serves who? Who feeds who? Does the field feed the house, or does the house feed the field? You don't have a field, you're not going to have a house to live in. You want to be able to pay your bills. You want to be able to provide. You want to be able to have the things you have in your city. It's only because there's a field that provides for it. The field represents that you bring out in the world. Yes, Shabbos is beautiful. Yes, you come home at night, you have a beautiful dinner, and you spend time with your family. But one of the ways that you could afford to do that is because you're out in the field throughout the day. Where's the grain come from? Where's the wheat come from? That comes from the field. So to the brisa, which is the details of the law. V'chaya Mishnah gives life to the Mishnah. The Mishnah that it looks so beautiful and perfect is only because we have all the details. At the end, when you put the details back into the rule, the rule, like we says, the rule only exists because there is the details. And then it explains how one performs the mitzvah. And it explains us how one should do. I'm missing something here. Explains the halacha. And we have more the details in the brisa how one performs the mitzvah. There's an expression that says that if a person just opens up the Mishnah So the Mishnah says this. It's this strong language. Mavle Eila means almost like destroyers of the world. If you just want to have like kind of a general, this is how you do Shabbos, this is how you do a mitzvah, without knowing what is the details of every single halacha, which the Brisa gives us much more. And of course, after time with the Talmud and the responses and the Rambam and Shulchan Aruch. But if a person just says, "Oh, I'm going to open the Mishnah, I'm going to give me an idea of what the mitzvah is," that's Mavle Elam. It's horrible. He says. This is Yitzchak understood. He goes out of the city and he goes lasuach to pray in the field to speak, which lashon diber v'sicha, suach and the word sicha to speak, lashon sechia lamata to bend downwards, lashon v'sachru manashim, like a person who bows down. Kasher yifarish hasoichel ishchais, or like swimming. It's also sicha is also a language of swimming, moving back and forth. Basadet bard, to the source of food outside. Lifnes erev, as it gets dark. Lifanis erev achoyshev. You want to go out and you want to work to clean out the darkness. You need to go to the field. You need to go to the source. You want to deal with the darkness that's setting in as the sun sets. Yitzchak is mincha, going out to daven in the time of mincha. As the darkness comes in, you have to go out to the field. You want to stay strong. You want to know how to transform the darkness into light. You can only find it in the details. Because in the details, that's the kavanah. It's about the maisa. It's about the action. The heart serves this. There's the mind, not the mind serves the heart. The Torah comes down in all its details into the darkness of the world. Like it says about the Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud versus the Jerusalem Talmud, that in the darkness of Golus, Hoishivani, you could return me. You want to find God? Sometimes it's dafka in the darkness, in dealing with the Zet Talmud Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud that's in the Golus, in the exile, in the diaspora. That the Torah could come down and have to deal with even situations where there's lies. If you could only deal with emes, with truth, and you push away, you want to ignore that there could be lies or not pay attention, then that's not the Torah. Torah has to deal with every situation. Lifnei erev, when it gets dark, in the darkness, you have to find the light there and to transform that. Yitzchak understands that. He goes out to the field. And why does Torah come down so low into the Kidei lefanes erev achoshech? We have to cleanse it. Can't ignore that it's dark outside. That's why this is coming up the holiday of Chanukah. The menorah has to go into the darkness. Vihi or, Kemaimer le'es erev vihi or. The idea is that in the darkness to find the light. Kimshal Misha writes lefanes says a davar. If you want to clean something out, you can't pretend something doesn't exist. You gotta go inside to clean it out. You can't stand outside your garage and just look at it and expect it to become clean. You have an issue, if the sore backs up, you got to call a plumber. It's just not going to go away. The point is not to stay in the darkness. You don't go into the darkness to stay. You're going to cleanse it out. But if you want to clean it out, you got to go inside. And that's also, why does the Torah come down even into claims of untruth? Someone says, I found it first. Both of them couldn't have found it first. Is you have to go into places. There's inconsistencies. Everyone has these inconsistencies in our life. The two sides that are claiming ownership of the talis are within us. But how could we deal with it if we don't get down there? We have to transform the darkness to light. So when someone studies Torah, also, when you have all the questions and it's in the details, you have to go in there and ask the questions, battle with the questions, because through the questions you're going to find the light. Only because there's questions and just flow through things, it's not going to go through like that. Alas cholas adin, to find out the exact understanding of the law, ha'emes la'amita, to get to the truth. What is the law in this situation? The limtzoy ha'emes, and to find the truth of how Torah says this has to be this way it should be. Gilei Ratzin Elyon Baruch Hu, you want to really reveal God's desire and Ratzin in this world is to find what is the halacha. How do I perform the mitzvah exactly? The halacha doesn't serve my spiritual experience. Like we said before, the law isn't there so to fuel my love. My love is there to fuel my action. But yeah, that's why Yitzchak goes to the field. He goes out. He goes out towards the evening to the field, outside the comfort of his home, to deal with the darkness, to fix it. The sakne means to fix it. And who's it doing it? The Yitzchak. And what's Yitzchak pachad? The fear. Also the judgment, the limitations, boundaries, comes from Yitzchak. The Yiras Hashem, the fear of God. Kamaimer, Imein Yira, if there's no fear in Chachma, there's no wisdom. V'zehu, and this is what it means. Ha'omer ein li ele Torah. If a person says it's all about just the study of Torah, afilu Torah ein li doesn't have the Torah. V'nisha v'chayshach, you stay in darkness. The idea is that going through the Torah is the Torah coming in the darkness is to be able to accomplish something. Is to bring the light in the darkness of creation, and that's where the kavanah is. That's the intention of why the world was created. That you have to turn that the choshech becomes your concealment. That's the way you bring. That's where you bring the light into through the darkness. But it's not to stay in the darkness. That's why Yitzchak goes out to clean out the darkness and the evening. And the point is that when it comes dark is when you're going to find the light. And not so much, he doesn't quote that after the darkness is light. When it becomes dark, is when you're going to find light. And this is what it means to whiten the law of Torah. Because by understanding what is the law, what do I have to do? How do I perform Shabbos? How do I keep kosher? How do I light Shabbos candles? How do I light the menorah? What does it mean to daven? What does it mean to put on tefillin, to give tzedakah? That's the Libin Hilchasa. That's where whitening is. You're bringing the light into the confusion of this world. This means to bless Torah. Through Torah, you're blessing, you're bringing down. Baruch means to bring down light into this world. So thank you all for joining. It's a short Maamar, but the ideas are great. And these are the Maamar of this week of explaining what it means. What it means to be in this world. What it means that the Seif Maisa. It's all about the action. When you have a question of a personal experience or accomplishing something, that where's the intention? The intention is in what you could accomplish. The person could say, well, for me, it's better to sit in Garden of Eden. That's for you. What does God want? So the lessons are very deep. And of course, that's why we say when Mashiach comes, the Gemara on Shabbos tells us when Mashiach comes, we're going to say, Yitzchak Chiata Avinu, the Yitzchak's our father. We're not going to look to Avram, we're not going to look to Yaakov as much, but we're going to look to Yitzchak, because Yitzchak was that focus and that strength of Yitzchak is how we go through the Galus. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining. Laila Tov and Shavua Tov. Take care.
Thank you, Rabbi. Shavua Tov.
Well,